Hello and welcome back to the Adventures in CRE audio series. This is another bonus episode after we've wrapped up season number 2. And today we've got something really exciting that we want to share with you. It's timely to the circumstances that we find ourselves in. It's all about how to best navigate the current crisis as well as lessons learned from 2008. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Adventures in CRE audio series. Join Michael Belasco and Spencer Burton as they pull back the curtain on everything commercial real estate and introduce you to some of the top minds in the industry. If you want to take your skills to the next level and be part of a growing community of CRE professionals across the world, this is for you.
All right, welcome back to the Adventures in CRE audio series. Joined today, of course, with Michael Belasco and Spencer Burton. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, doing good. Nice.
Wonderful. So again, as I kind of stated in the intro, these are odd and interesting times. And I think there's a lot of people that want to know maybe some suggestions, what things they can do to navigate the current situation. So Spencer, I'm going to dish it over to you to kind of set things up and really get the ball rolling here.
Yeah. So Michael and I both have had quite a few discussions in the last few weeks, both with, in our day jobs and people we're talking to about the economic environment that we're in. There's obviously the social environment around distancing and shelter in place. I don't want to really get into that too much because that's not our area of expertise, but around the economic elements and how this impacts our lives, we've had a lot of conversations with people, and I've felt from some fear, uncertainty, concern. There's job losses I'm hearing in commercial real estate. I'm hearing pay cuts. There are deals that are stalling. Certainly most firms are taking a wait and see approach. And so having been through 2008 and getting crushed by that recession in the field, the property type I was working with at the time, I thought I'd offer my perspective. Sam has an interesting perspective as well as he went through that, and Michael has his perspective, and we thought we'd offer that, like some takeaways from that time and how they might relate today, and hopefully we can offer some thoughts for those who are nervous about the outcome here, and maybe a glimmer of hope that these things are, believe it or not, for the better
right.
in the long run. So that's, Sam, that's kind of the setup to what I want to get into today.
Economically speaking.
Economically speaking. Yes. Economically speaking.
Well, and I think a lot of us, as whenever there's some type of market correction or recession or whatever you want to call it, like you said, 2008 was a bit of a interesting year for myself as well as you guys as well. But coming up to these recessions, I remember back in 2008, what it was like coming up to 2008. Okay. The market conditions, we were really doing well at the time. I actually owned, of all things to own, not a great thing to own, a residential mortgage company. And we were doing very well in the state of Idaho. We were doing extremely well, and it hit us really quick. And that's kind of like this, but the things that are interesting is, and I think this is happening to people right now, is coming up to the recession. It's almost like you think nothing can go wrong. You accept those extraordinary conditions as normal. So when something as shocking as that happened, or as what we're going through right now happens, it kind of jolts everything out of place,
Yeah. So what happens, right, is there's headline after headline of good news.
Right.
And you become conditioned to believe that this is the new normal. In fact, you start reading articles about this is the new normal. And even this, like this is a classic black swan event,
right?
Where something completely unexpected. Of course, there are experts out there who say this was expected, but be that as it may, completely unexpected from an economic standpoint, and it sends us into a tailspin, even if it's short term, and we don't know how long it is. So I woke up this morning to a CNBC headline: Goldman sees 15% jobless rate and 34% GDP decline. Now the headline then continues, followed by the fastest recovery in history. So Goldman sees kind of a V-shaped recession here, right? A big collapse and followed by a recovery. But I believe that 34% GDP decline would be the largest decline in history, larger than anything we saw in the Great Depression. And you have to believe that there will be ripple effects from that while we may recover quickly, and I believe it, Goldman sees a 19% rebound in the third quarter. It takes a while to come back from it. And we saw that in 2008, right? Where certain industries were hit early and the broader economy didn't even know necessarily that it was happening. I mean, in the subprime situation, I mean, that stuff was first revealing itself late 2006.
Right.
Sam, I mean, the mortgage company you talk about, for those who don't know, I was a partner in that mortgage company. Yeah. Sam and I have been friends since we were young. And it took us, and I think most people in the industry, it hit us flat-footed. And so here you go, December, and I remember this day, December, I want to say it was 14. It was a Friday in the middle of December, and we all finished our work day. And Monday comes around, and I get a call from Sam saying, "Hey, our largest Alt-A lender went under over the weekend." Now, for those who don't know, so everyone knows subprime, but most don't know Alt-A. And that mortgage company we were talking about largely lent Alt-A mortgages, which are effectively non-conventional mortgages to credit-worthy borrowers, and they were very, very popular at the time.
Yeah,
they were like the subprime's equivalent, but for good borrowers, and they were very popular. And over the weekend, completely unexpectedly, at least to those who are outside of that small little world, completely unexpected, gone. And that rippled into, now the rest of the world discovered this kind of later in 2007, but it was like COVID-19, unexpected. And all of a sudden, your world's upside down. And what do you do?
So that's actually, I'm glad that you set that up, because one of the things that people are seeing now is this seems like a very abrupt, quick thing. Okay. And in 2008, for us, it was extremely abrupt and quick. I mean, you're talking about from 1 month, we went from doing, 80, 90 mortgages to the next month doing 3 or 4. And that's a literal number. That is a very short amount of time to see the spigot get turned off. Most businesses during that time, because they weren't in the mortgage lending field, didn't see that quick of a turnoff. So when they talk about the recession, everybody has their own experience. For me, this is very similar to that, to where we saw hey, somebody just shut the spigot off, right?
Overnight. And so that's what happened here. Like a month and a half ago, I was on vacation, and then I come back, and all of a sudden I can't go to work anymore. Yeah. And 2 weeks later, no one can go to work, and the economy shuts down, and like you said, the spigot turns off. And if you're not, it can be very scary, especially if this is your first downturn. Right.
And I think that was one of the, as we were talking about this coming into this episode, one of the things that I wanted to share was it doesn't have to be scary, because of my experience and your experience, and I'm sure Michael has his own experience of going through that recession. I actually feel encouraged because this was not built upon, from what we know, built upon anything fundamental in the economy. It was more of, like you said, a black swan event. So this is more an event. And whatever happens after does not, as far as the recovery time, does not really matter. Will there be change? Yes. Is there opportunity? Absolutely. Can you position yourself to succeed? 100%. But I think that in order to do that, and hopefully this is kind of where we can start talking about, because this is really where my journey took me, is in order to position yourself to win from this, you do need to rethink the way you approach everything. I mean, if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to start your own business or whatever the case may be, doing it the way you would have done it even 6 months ago needs to change. And you need to adapt and become indispensable to the opportunities that are out there waiting for you. So, I think that shifting and pivoting the conversation towards, okay, we are where we're at. Now what? What do you need to do?
Yeah. So the first takeaway from me from the 2008 environment. So I was a partner in the mortgage company, and at the time I was a land developer, right? So land development meaning lot development.
Yeah.
And if you're familiar with that time, that spigot turned off. There was no liquidity in lot sales. It's certainly not in the markets I was in. None. Which means there was no business there. And my biggest weakness at the time, I didn't realize it, is I had no other skill set. In fact, and some of you know this, I didn't have a college degree at that point in time. And I quickly realized I had no value in the marketplace.
Right.
And because I had no value in the marketplace, I couldn't support my family. And it was humiliating personally. And thankfully I had a residential developer, it was a former client who I had worked with and then had gone to work for him. And he opened up some opportunities, and we went and we developed a project outside the United States because there wasn't any residential development happening inside the United States. Even so, outside of that environment, I wouldn't have gone to Central America to develop housing if opportunities were good in the States, right? And so, nevertheless, I realized that I had no marketable skill outside of this really very much niche idea, this niche area of residential land development, and I needed a decent education to back up the skills, and then I needed to broaden those. Right. We laugh, but when I moved to Panama, I had 28 credits of undergrad completed and a GPA of 1.9. Right. I mean, it was.
That is an incredible story, by the way. I mean, if you think about what happened after, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's incredible.
Yeah. I was young and I was dumb, and I thought, I'm smart enough. I don't need that. I can hustle and put deals together. And I had been very successful at it. Of course, any blind squirrel at the time could have found an acorn. And so I was doing very, very, very well prior to the crash. And then all of a sudden the spigot turned off and it was over. And I realized I didn't have a marketable skill. The marketplace didn't need me. And I had to make myself marketable. And that has been my mission since. Yeah. Right. I focused on getting an education. I did that night while I was working on our project in Panama. I spent nearly 7 years in Panama, kind of learning that, but knowing I needed to pivot away from the residential land development thing. As much as I enjoy it, it wasn't it wasn't a long-term viable area of real estate that I wanted to be in. That led me to Cornell, and I attribute much of my success to my graduate degree and the people that I met there, Michael included, and then coming out of that and going into work at an institutional shop. And now I'm going into this one and I have the skill set. Right. And I'm not at all nervous. And that's because I have value in the marketplace, and I didn't have that before. And so that's my first takeaway. It's a long-winded way of saying, if you don't have value in the marketplace, you gotta get it.
Well, and I think that's where Michael, myself, I think the first thing that we all can agree on that we each did, and would be another move that everybody should look at right now, was acquire the skills and the value you need to, again, like you said, to have your value, to have what you can give and add in the marketplace. So Michael, maybe a little bit when you were coming, because you and Spencer were obviously in school at the same time, and you were coming out of, I believe, a career in building, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So my 2008, 2009, that whole era experience was a lot different than you guys. You guys were out and about. I was actually still in school. So what I saw during that time, I was pretty much sheltered within the educational system. And what I saw was a lot of people fleeing back to education, which is exactly what happens when everybody loses their job. And Spencer, you really kind of said it.
Yeah.
You go back and you figure out how to become marketable. And look, it's different. There's a lot of different, there's similarities. There's this black swan event, which you said, there's this downturn, but there's a lot of added different angles to this, right? There's a health component to this, right? There's a lot of different things, but weirdly enough, we are even more adept today to deal with a situation like this because how far technology has advanced, and there's so many things you can do, and how online education has proliferated, and there's just so many opportunities. There are things, universities, all this free education out there. But point being is that in times like this, what is it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, get your house in order and get all your, there are needs that need to be met. And then once those are met, I mean, that now is the time to say, okay, I have a little window here. Once I have all my stuff in order, I'm not stressed out. My family's taken care of, we have food, everybody's in their right places and healthy. Now's the time to kind of expand. I mean, it's funny, you could focus on, education, even hobbies you can pick up. It's funny, I've been playing my guitar a lot like crazy lately, which is awesome. I mean, which is great, but now is really an opportunity to kind of, go inward a little bit, right? We're so out and about, and all of a sudden things are going great and you kind of turn down. I was kind of doing that. It's kind of what you do when you're kind of in school, and that's kind of where I was in 2008. And I'm seeing the return back. It's almost like there's these sentiments and feelings about people that I've grown up with, going back a little bit outside of the stressors of what's happening. You kind of see that, and this kind of return, weirdly enough, like a return to self and inner growth and learning and stuff like that. So, look, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of scary things going on. And, what's the saying? I've been hearing it so much now during this downturn. It's be greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy, right?
Warren
Which
Buffett.
is kind of like everybody's kind of fearful, and greedy might not be the right word for this, but right? Like get out of the fear, and expand or grow or get greedy with your education, or get greedy with yourself personally right now. Or maybe, it's tough to find a job, almost impossible, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's basically the point. And just prep for it, right? This is a moment in time. And I saw it, and I was sheltered from it, but I saw everybody come out. You guys, I've heard your stories, and it's fascinating. You guys could write a book about your story through 2008, and there's a lot more of the personal details and the struggles you guys went through, that you come out on the other side. I remember, Spencer, when we were at Cornell, and just like, I remember you telling me the story from like, it's not rags to riches, it was riches to rags and back, right? And it's just, but it's such a good story. It's the story that, like, I went home and I was like telling my wife, dude, this guy Spencer, who, his story is amazing, right? And there's darkest, and the other thing, Spencer, that we talk about, that book that you're talking about, the infinite game, right? We're in a moment in time, and nothing is permanent, and there is another side to this. We will get out, and nothing lasts forever. So prep, take some stock, get some personal time, retool, be with family as much as you can, but like really prepare, because there is another side to this. And here's kind of a window of opportunity, weirdly enough, outside of all the craziness.
Yeah. And we're speaking to the individual, but I think you could also say the same of a company, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
How often do you get a chance to pause and reassess where you are and where you're going? And so if you're a small business owner, maybe a development shop where all of your development deals are drying up right now, or it's a chance to rethink who you are as a company, what your strategy is, and no one will fault you. And I mean, that's kind of the beauty of this particular situation. Everyone's paused and stopped. Yeah. And so like no time in my life have I ever had so much time to be productive. And it's been incredible. So that's my first big takeaway. And thanks, Michael, for your perspective on that as well. Like your skill set matters.
Your skill set absolutely matters. Yeah.
Your skill set is your value in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And so think about that, and strengthen your skill set. Take the opportunity now that you have to do that.
Hold some inventory. I mean, like, sit down with yourself and say, hey, what skills am I good at? What things do I need to get better at? Where can I become indispensable to people that are looking to hire? Right? When they've got a stack full of resumes, how's mine going to stick out from everybody else? So for me, as I look back at that time, one of the behaviors and one of the things, and maybe in like my big thing here is when I look back at what I initially did, I can look back and say, I didn't manage the situation very good at all at its onset. It came in, pretty quickly, and, I was young and I never anticipated those types of challenges. And one of the things that I have now come to really be an advocate for, and even today, this is a huge problem, is just the mindset and the way you show up. And here's what I mean. Okay. Most people behave and interact with other people and do their job almost subconsciously from day to day, meaning they have a pre-programmed response in their communication and the way they execute tasks and the way they do their job. Everything is almost subconscious. Okay. It's kind of like when you're driving your car. If you've ever driven your car for, a place that you go to a lot, and then all of a sudden you end up there and you're like, whoa, how did you're on autopilot, right? Yeah. The whole time you were safe. You were, executing the tasks that you need to do to be a safe driver, but you showed up there without much thought. This is the way that most people enter like their daily lives. And for me, this was a problem because I did the same thing. And what it led me to at that time was sitting and waiting. You know what I mean? It was like sitting and waiting to see, what's the government going to do to help me? Is my business going to come back? It was basically just sitting and waiting for things to happen. Now, not intentionally. It wasn't like I was saying, oh, I just want to be lazy, because I've never been lazy, but I just didn't know. I didn't know what to do. And so what I share, and one of the things that I really believe in, like, if I were to say, hey, what is a big lesson that led to any amount of success that I've had since? And that's been show up with a plan, be proactive. Okay. That starts at the beginning of your day, every single day. And that starts and that continues through whatever it is that you're going after, whether that's to get a job, to start your own company, whatever it is. If you show up proactively, you're going to win. And not just because, hey, I have a plan or whatever. It's because most people are operating subconsciously. And so you start to do these things that they themselves would never do. Right now, and I'll just anecdotally share this, we have got a ton of people that, as far as their behavior in the accelerator, which we don't need to get into that, but as far as they are taking action, they are consuming content, they are asking questions. There's all these amazing things that those people are doing to take action that I find that maybe wouldn't have happened had this not happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's that deliberate action you're talking about, right? And you're right. It's easy to fall into the autopilot, but those who take deliberate action have plans.
Yeah.
I love that that's your takeaway, because my second takeaway, and by the way, we didn't rehearse or we didn't talk through any of this.
I feel like it's better if you don't. Yeah.
Yeah. So my second takeaway is around focus, and I think there's a lot of parallels with your deliberate action idea. So, what I found is when times were really bad, having a long-term focus on something that I was working towards made it's that infinite game idea. It's the short term is less important than working towards this long-term thing that I had. And my wife and I had at the time a clear focus on where we were going.
Yeah.
And that helped us make decisions on a daily basis and on a monthly basis that worked towards that focus. And we were deliberate about it. Like, we knew exactly where we were going. We weren't sure exactly how we were going to get there, but we had that focus, and that drove the decisions that we made in those coming years. And it took years, by the way. I mean, to get out of that, unfortunately, 2008 was a really tough time.
Yeah.
And again, I wasn't well positioned or prepared for it. Certainly not as prepared as I am for this one. So that was tough, and it took some time. But because we had that focus, it allowed us to take deliberate action because we knew where we were going.
Yeah. And I heard this phrase one time that consistent effort compounds, right? So meaning if you're out there and you're trying to do things, it's not one or two attempts that are going to get you the result. It's that consistent effort. And as you do anything over time, it has compounding effects. Like if you were to really want to lose weight, if you do a crash diet for a week, that's not going to work. But if you set a goal and you also identify the behaviors and the actions that you're going to need to get you there, it's not hard to do. You just have to be consistent over time.
Let me share really quick. And I wasn't going to share this, but and so I'm a little vulnerable in sharing it. So this focus, one of the objectives that my wife and I concluded we needed was a graduate degree from a top 10, 15 university.
Yeah.
Okay. And for many of you, that doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. Where I grew up, no one went to a top 50 university. Okay. And I don't mean it to sound elitist at all. And it wasn't really about that. I felt like if I had a business degree from one of these top universities, that I would always be secure from there. And I didn't want to feel this insecurity, financial insecurity is what I'm talking about, financial insecurity again. At the time where we made this decision, this was a few months prior to us finally moving to Panama. Money had run out. We had 2 kids at the time. Well, actually, we had one with a second on the way, about to be born. And so we moved into my in-laws' basement. Okay. Talk about complete humiliation. So here I am. We've been married for several years, moved into my in-laws' basement, and we created that objective. We said, that is what we need in order to, this is unique. This is specific for everyone else. So that's why I hesitated to even share it. But that was for us what we felt like, and that created focus. And we had a couple other longer term objectives that we were working towards, but that was a big one for us. And again, in the perspective of in my in-laws' basement and 28 credits from a subpar university and a 1.9 GPA, I won't even say what university it is. It's that subpar at the time. That focus made all the difference. And it helped me get through kind of the darker times when things it was not fun for quite a few years.
So I'm actually really glad that you shared that. And that was what I was kind of alluding to, the story of you, going from, on top of the world to your in-laws' basement, because everybody is at everybody's kind of regressed in a lot of cases today. And you've regressed to severe sort of, you hit a huge trout right there.
You
right?
can call that rock bottom.
You can call it rock bottom. But that's what's right. So you developed a plan from that point. You were in the basement of your in-laws' house, right? And where everybody is today, you just lost your job. I mean, look, that's why your guys' story, because you actually were there. I mean, this isn't you just preaching something. You guys felt it, experienced it to the depths. Like you being able to speak from your in-laws' basement, you are speaking from there. And I'm glad that you shared that, because that is like, you know where to go from there. Like that's the outline, right? Set the goal, focus, all these things that we're talking about. So I just wanted to jump in and just say that just to reiterate for the audience that like, this is coming from people who really, we've been there. Spencer's in the in-laws' basement coming out, coming up. But that's big, right? It's vulnerable, but that's huge, I think. Yeah. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
There's a story, and it's one of my favorite stories. I believe it was Warren Buffett and Bill Gates were together at Bill Gates's parents' house. I mean, these are a lot of old people in one room. Okay. Yeah. So brace yourself.
The story's true. Cause if it's not true, then it's still a good story, even if it's not.
It is true. It has been fact checked. My recounting of it may be a little off, but the truth is here. So all three, so Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and Bill Gates' dad says, hey, I've got the two richest people at my house. I need to ask these guys a question. And so he asked them independent of each other. If you could cite one thing of anything that has been a key to your success, what would you attribute it to? And independent of each other, they each wrote the exact same word. And that word was focus. And it's really interesting when you look at the way people displace all of their efforts. Okay. The way we go this direction, chasing one objective, and then that direction, chasing another, and then this direction with distractions of whatever the distraction is. All of that effort and time gets displaced or gets used in one way or another. So when you're talking about focus, what we're talking about is putting a magnifying glass directed at something that you want to achieve and accomplish, right? So, I mean, for me, finding a mentor and having a person, which was ultimately something that I found down the road, it was ultimately something that for me gave me that focus. I learned it through, hard knocks, which, yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that. But if you're listening to this and you're saying, hey, I don't necessarily want to move into my in-laws' basement, you don't have to. Right. It just so happened that
do not recommend
it's not recommended. I think that there's a lot of things. So for me, mentorship was absolutely huge. I was doing a lot of things in my own day-to-day business. I've never had a job. I've always owned my own business. I've always been an entrepreneur. And that same thing I was talking about where you almost behave, subconsciously, meaning you don't really think with intent. Having a mentor for me started giving me all those pieces. And what I think is absolutely amazing today, now this is 2008, so that's, that's 12 years ago. Even back then, we didn't have podcasts. We had like talk radio, basically. I mean, maybe we had podcasts. I didn't listen to podcasts. We didn't have all this information. But what I think is amazing about today is mentorship is actually evolving, in my opinion. You can have the one-on-one. And what I really admire about both of you is the amount of time you take to speak directly to people in your audience. And I know this for a fact because I see emails and I see scheduled calls with people that are just doing consultations or just talking. These are just open discussions. And so what I really appreciate about what we can do today is we can come on and have a three-way discussion and share our experiences. And in essence, and I don't mean this like we're above anybody or anything like that, but hopefully this experience can serve as a little bit of mentorship for people who are maybe trying to create a plan or feeling a little out of sorts with all this. And I think really we do have opportunity so long as our mindset is positioned and we have the right perspective on things.
Yeah, so I'm really glad you brought this up as well, because my third and final takeaway.
Am I like taking everything?
No, this is perfect. So at these points in your life, again, it's a reassessment, it's a reevaluation. Forget about yourself.
Yeah.
And I know that's hard to say, especially in the context of have some focus and think about your skill set, and that's really your value in the marketplace. But when you reverse your thinking and you wake up in the morning and say, okay, who can I help? It's amazing how the universe just turns around and helps you back. Yeah. And so you talk about mentorship, like, and I'm sure I'm speaking for Michael when I say this, like we do those phone calls and we respond to these emails because we enjoy it. That's why we do it. And that's all. We like talking to people, and it feels good to help other people. But it also is interesting, and that's something we enjoy. But what you'll find is if you kind of forget about your plight and think about, okay, what skills do you have? What abilities do you have that can help someone else? Number one, it makes the harder times a lot easier because you're not so focused on what's going wrong. But you also, represent to the world that you're a value-driven individual.
Yeah.
And that what you want is to benefit others, and people just want to work with folks like that.
Yeah.
Michael, am I off base here? Am I not getting this quite right? Or what are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't have much to say to that. I think that's totally right. You take time away from yourself, and time goes by, you're focusing on other people. It's helpful, and you get something out of that. It feels good. It's almost, in a weird way, it's kind of selfish, because when you're done, you feel good that you've helped somebody. If you've helped somebody, hopefully you've had a good conversation and it was insightful and helpful. And every time I talk with somebody, I feel like I get something back from them as well. Like, there's stuff, like, I don't go into conversations. People will reach out and ask me for input or advice, and I'll give them what I have, but I oftentimes find I learn just as much from the conversation, because they'll tell me stuff that I don't know, right? I'm not here pretending to be, an expert on all things. We'll have a conversation, and we'll share ideas, and it'll be about the person who's on the other end of the line or on the other end of the email. And yeah, it's good. I benefit from it just like you, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But let me echo that sentiment. I mean, Michael and I do calls a couple times a week at least. And, I had a call this week. I won't give too many details because I don't want to divulge the individual's details, but 25-year-old guy who's spent a couple of years at a particular shop, and I learned some really interesting things from this person, right? And just because we all have different perspectives, we've done different things. But back to my point about, like, look outward. It's not just all like going and raking your neighbor's yard. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, we're talking career, we're talking, your economics. You have a skill set that you can offer to others, and you don't have to get paid all the time to do it.
And sometimes that's the best way to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of in summary, to wrap up this episode, I think it's safe to say that while in maybe challenging times we find ourselves right now, there's opportunity that will come about from this. So if you have the right perspective, if you are open to trying things a new way, and if you're open to bettering your skill set and your value to the market, you can certainly position yourself to win after this. Anything you would add to that, Spencer or Michael?
I think it's well said.
Yeah, no, you're spot on.
Wonderful.
Actually, I do have something to add. I would not change what happened in 2008 for the world.
Agreed.
I am who I am today because of what I went through. I'm grateful for that time, and I wouldn't change it.
Right.
And so if you're going through a really hard time economically right now, you're going to look back on this. And this is cheap words at this point in time for you, but you're going to look back on this time at some point, especially if you take advantage of this time, and you're going to be grateful for it because you're going to be stronger. Your company's going to be strong. If you have a company, your company's going to be stronger for it. As an individual, you'll be better. Your career's going to be better off because these sorts of disruptions force you to be better. Yeah, and do better. So that's
couldn't agree more.
My parting words.
One really great thing that has come out of this, and almost a bit of announcement to the listeners and to people over at Adventures in CRE. One of the cool things that is happening as a result of this is we're launching a new, almost like a sub audio series to the audio series. Now we record, if you don't know this, most of our episodes in this audio series are recorded in seasons. Last episode and this episode are bonus episodes, but they've also kind of maybe lit a little bit of a fire in us to help people understand what other opportunities and what other stories can help them through these times. So we're launching a new sub-series called Accelerators in Action. That's going to be absolutely amazing. We're going to have people that are out there doing amazing things in commercial real estate, in their community, and different things. And we're going to be sharing their stories. So stay tuned for that. We appreciate everybody that has come on and listened to this. If you like this, feel free to give us a review, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Adventures in CRE audio series. For show notes and additional resources, head over to www.adventuresincre.com/audio series. Would you like to learn real estate financial modeling in a matter of weeks and do it with zero guesswork? If so, the A.CRE Accelerator is for you. The Accelerator is a step-by-step, case-based program designed to teach you exactly what you need to know and in the order you need to know it, so you can gain both the knowledge and experience to take your career to the next level. To see if the Accelerator is right for you, go to www.adventuresincre.com/accelerator.